안녕하세요, 여러분. This is 77th once again, coming at you guys with another video. And this video is going to be about the awakened INFJ and their awakened NI versus the unawakened INFJ and their unawakened NI, which they're not really using NI, they're using their subconscious, which I have labeled here as SETI. They're actually using those first two functions. Okay. So the thing is, you got two types of INFJs, right? You have the awakened INFJ, you have the unawakened INFJ. Okay. And these two INFJs, well, actually, I have here, what I have illustrated here is I have the INFJ, the four sides of the INFJ mind. I have the ego here, I have the shadow here, I have the subconscious here, and I have the superego here. So this is all four sides of the INFJ mind. Okay. Like I said, this isn't you know MBTI 101 here. Um, so that's what I have illustrated here. So all four sides of the INFJ mind, you know, you can. What I've discovered is the INFJ can be developed in either one. You know, and shout out to CS Joseph. You guys can go check out his videos. I actually learned a term called the subconscious developed or the unconscious developed. Though those two terms I've learned from catching videos on his channel, and I'll put a link to his channel in the description. Um, but yeah, you can be more of an ego based INFJ. You can be an unconscious developed INFJ. You can be a subconscious developed INFJ. And you can be a more of a super ego developed INFJ. Um, but the thing is, we're gonna talk about the unawakened INFJ and how they more or less use their NI, okay? Or their SETI. Um, See, the thing is with the unawakened INFJ, their NI is not very strong. And yes, there are power levels to NI. There are power levels to all the functions. NI, NI that's dominant will not be anywhere near NI that's in the eighth slot, okay, or the seventh, sixth, or fifth. There's strength levels as you go up, okay. So the NI dominant INFJ, as far as an unawakened INFJ, you're not necessarily using NI in a dominant fashion. Okay. The NI in the unawakened INFJ, it has no sight beyond the external plane of existence. You will never hear, social media, you know, YouTube content creators, you name it. You will never hear an INFJ on social media talk about subject matter 99% of the time or more about things beyond this external plane of existence. Everything will be about everything is what I like to call from a skyscraper and below. Matters that reside on earth in existence from a skyscraper and below. Okay? You will never hear an INFJ talk about anything beyond that. And like I said, it's because they have no sight beyond the external plane of existence. Um, you know, like, and it'll be more about subjects like, like I said, it'll be about subjects, of a SI or SE, you know, realm or matters, which is skyscraper and below. Um, it's more like their NI, well, and I'll go over here to the subconscious. It's more like their NI is supporting these two functions rather than their SE supporting their NI. Okay. So I want to go into this a little bit. So we're going to circle, and I think I want to go with, let's say, I guess we can go black, green. So I'm going to circle these two functions here. Okay. I'm going to circle those two. Um, if you guys have never heard me talk about the primary modes of processing in a human's brain when it comes to the MBTI, this is how it works. Every human, depending on their personality type, their first and their third function pretty much governs their primary mode of processing and thinking throughout their life. Okay. So with the INFJ, it should be NITI, introverted intuition and introverted thinking. But with the unawakened INFJ or subconscious developed INFJ, it's more of the extroverted sensing and extroverted feeling variety. Okay. So these INFJs are more likely, and I'm talking about the subconscious developed INFJ, these INFJs, they're more likely have been in a predominantly sensor environment. You know, their way to survive, whether it was growing up, you know, in school, it's an early life thing, them in their early life. So basically, when I say subconscious developed, I mean, it's more or less they're 75% or more. They're basically not INFJs. They're basically one of these, or they see the world as one of these, more or less. The ESTP. So what they're actually doing is taking their SE and their TI, because SE is extroverted sensing. SE doesn't miss a thing when it comes to the external world. It's like an eagle. It's like your eyes are like eagle eyes. Or if you want to say in a sense of, you know, quality of, like 4K, 8K, you know, SE is more 12K. It doesn't miss a thing. It sees the world in 12K. So SE and TI get together and they analyze what the world is. And then from there, they will go here and make NI conclusions based off of what these guys working together see. Okay. So with that, if you're a man, and I'm going to go with men here, if you're a man that has grown up in a predominantly sensor environment, you know, especially if you, let's say you grew up in a single parent home and that parent was an and ST right here was an ST. Okay. So if you grew up in that environment, where you're surrounded by sensors, namely STs, their thing is all about controlling the narrative, controlling the dynamics of everything. Okay. So anytime your, let's say your NI tried to leak out, or your NE tried to leak out. Let's say when you were a kid, if you were into things that STs or sensors are not necessarily into. Like, for example, me, um, black. I grew up in a predominantly black neighborhood, but growing up, I necessarily didn't like rap music. I was enamored with alternative music. I loved playing the drums. I had a friend of mine, when I was 18, he taught me how to play the drums. So I was always into alternative rock music, things like that, not necessarily rap music. So that's more of how NE is. And as you can see, SI is at the bottom. So SI is more, tradition, in the sense of, in my case, you know, black culture, you know, my SI is eighth. So as far as that tradition, I wasn't into that. I was more interested in finding my own tradition, my own things that I was personally into. So, like I said, I was into rock music, drums, electric guitars, you name it. Those were my interests. So, I didn't really fall under the, scope of the traditional black censor. And being a man growing up in that environment, there's a lot of pressure to be everything that that culture says. And again, everything that culture says, SI, society, like I said, eighth. So, yeah, no. So, like I said, there's a lot of pressure with, as you're growing up, to be the quintessential censor in that environment, in that culture. There's a lot of pressure, a lot of scrutiny, you name it. Okay. And a lot of the scrutiny mainly comes from the closest people to you, like your family. Those are the main culprits of the scrutiny. And like I like to say, and like I've said, STs create scapegoats. While, you're going through life, you're trying to be the fellow citizen. And if you haven't seen my fellow citizen video, go check it out.